This story came from a guy named Andrew, and from the very beginning he made one thing clear. He does not celebrate Christmas anymore, not after what happened. Andrew lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where every house looked almost identical. Same layout, same roof shape, same short driveways. The kind of place where nothing ever feels out of place. It was the type of neighborhood controlled by a strict HOA, where decorations had to follow certain rules, and anything unusual was noticed immediately. Around early December, the neighborhood slowly started changing. One house at a time, people put up Christmas decorations. Soft white lights, inflatable snowmen, plastic Santas bolted to rooftops. Everything looked cheerful, organized, and predictable. Andrew did not participate. He worked night shifts at a distribution center and usually got home just before sunrise. Most of his days were spent sleeping. Christmas had never meant much to him, and decorating felt like unnecessary effort. One morning, after getting home around 6 a.m., he noticed something strange. There was a Christmas wreath hanging on his front door. It was dark green, decorated with red berries and a small gold bow. It looked brand new. At first, Andrew assumed his mom had stopped by. She had a habit of forcing holiday spirit into his life whenever she could. He texted her, half annoyed, half amused. She replied almost immediately. She had not been there. That response made him pause, but not panic. Maybe a neighbor dropped it off by mistake. Maybe it was part of some HOA thing. Still confused, he took the wreath down, leaned it against the wall inside, and went to bed. The next night, when Andrew came home, the house looked different. String lights were neatly lining the edge of his front porch. They were not tangled or rushed. Each strand was evenly spaced, clipped perfectly in place. Whomever installed them had taken their time. This time, Andrew felt uneasy. He checked his security camera footage immediately. There was nothing. No motion alerts, no one walking up to the porch, no shadows, just hours of empty footage. Then, suddenly, between two normal frames, the lights were there. That was the moment he felt real fear. Over the next week, things escalated. A small plastic reindeer appeared on his front lawn, positioned to face the street. Then a Santa figurine showed up next to the door. Then more lights appeared along the roofline, outlining the house with unsettling precision. Andrew stopped removing the decorations. Something about touching them made his skin crawl. It felt wrong, like he was interfering with something that had already decided what his house should become. One night, around 2 a.m., Andrew woke up to his phone vibrating on the nightstand. Motion detected. His heart started racing as he opened the camera app. Someone was standing on his porch. They were wearing a full Santa suit, red coat, white trim, hat pulled low. But they weren't moving. They just stood there, facing the door, their head slightly tilted forward as if listening for something inside. Andrew watched the screen for nearly 10 minutes. The figure did not knock, did not shift their weight, did not look around. There was no obvious movement at all, no visible breathing, no signs of impatience. Then the camera feed glitched. The image distorted for a split second, and when it returned, the porch was empty. The next morning, Andrew noticed one final decoration. A hand-painted wooden sign had been carefully staked into the center of his lawn. The letters were uneven, but deliberate. It read, "Thank you for letting me finish." Andrew packed his things and moved out before Christmas arrived. The new tenants didn't last 3 weeks. According to neighbors, the decorations were never taken down. They stayed exactly where they were.
Itsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
This story was sent in by a woman named Rachel, and it happened when she was 16 years old. She said this was the moment Christmas stopped feeling warm, familiar, and safe, and started feeling deeply wrong. Rachel's family had a quiet tradition. Every year, they bought exactly one new Christmas ornament. Nothing expensive, nothing flashy, just something simple to mark the passing of another year. Over time, the ornaments became a timeline of their lives, childhood memories, vacations, inside jokes, moments frozen in glass. They stored all of them in a large plastic bin in the attic. Once a year, usually in early December, her dad would climb up, pull the bin down, and the family would decorate the tree together. That year began like every other year. Her dad carried the bin down from the attic and popped the lid open in the living room. The familiar sound of glass lightly clinking together filled the air. Rachel sat on the floor, pulling out ornaments one by one. Everything felt normal. Familiar colors, familiar shapes, familiar memories. Until Rachel noticed one ornament she did not recognize. It was a small glass ball, slightly yellowed as if it had aged longer than the rest. Instead of a design or a pattern, it had a hand-painted face on it. The face looked realistic, too realistic. The eyes were uneven. One sat slightly lower than the other. The smile was crooked, not cheerful, but strained, almost like the face was forcing itself to smile. The longer Rachel stared at it, the more uncomfortable she felt. She asked where it came from. Her parents paused. Both of them studied the ornament closely. They said the same thing. They had never seen it before. After a moment, they assumed it must have been a gift from a distant relative, someone who forgot to include a card. They laughed it off, even though Rachel still felt uneasy. They hung it on the tree anyway. That was the first mistake. That night, Rachel had a dream. In the dream, she was lying in her bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. Someone was standing in the corner of her room. Their shape was unclear, but she could feel their attention. They were not approaching, not speaking, just watching her sleep. She woke up with her heart racing and blamed it on stress. The next morning, while eating breakfast, Rachel noticed something strange. The ornament looked different. The face had changed. The eyes were more open now, not wide, just alert, like they were aware of being observed. Rachel stared at it for a long time, trying to convince herself she was imagining things. Glass reflections, bad lighting, anything but what it felt like. Over the next few days, small things started happening. No matter where the ornament was placed on the tree, it always seemed to face Rachel. If she moved it to the back, it was facing her again the next morning. If she turned it slightly away, it was corrected later. Then more ornaments appeared. At first, Rachel thought she had forgotten them, but the longer she looked, the more she realized these were new. Same glass material, same yellowed tone, same hand-painted style, different faces. Some of the faces looked angry, some looked terrified, some frozen mid-expression, like they were trapped in a moment of fear. Rachel started avoiding the living room at night. Then she noticed one ornament that made her stop breathing. It looked exactly like her. Same eyes, same nose, same small scar on her eyebrow. Even the expression matched the one she made when she stared too long into the mirror. She screamed and dropped it. The ornament hit the floor. It did not break. Her parents finally took her seriously. They removed every ornament with a face, placed them into thick trash bags, and carried them into the garage. The tree stood bare that night. Lights turned off. The house felt quieter than it had ever had. Rachel barely slept. Sometime after midnight, a loud noise echoed through the house, a sharp, heavy sound coming from the garage. In the morning, they found the garage completely disturbed. Every trash bag had been torn open. Glass shards were arranged carefully across the concrete floor, not scattered, not chaotic, organized, deliberate, almost careful. In the center of the garage sat one intact ornament. Rachel recognized the face immediately. It was her mother. Her parents did not speak. They packed essential belongings and left the house that same day. No tree, no decorations, no explanations to neighbors. Rachel says her family never celebrated Christmas again. Even now, years later, she still has the same dream. Rows of glass faces watching her from the dark, waiting to be remembered.
Itsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
This final story comes from someone named Marcus, and he says this is the reason Christmas has never felt normal to him again. Marcus lived alone in a mid-sized apartment complex on the edge of a quiet city. The building was older, but still in good condition. Long hallways, beige walls, thin doors, the kind of place where you could hear footsteps echo late at night. Most of the residents kept to themselves. Nobody really socialized. People came home from work, unlocked their doors, and disappeared inside. It was quiet, predictable, safe. Every year, around early December, one apartment in the complex became impossible to ignore. One unit went completely overboard with Christmas decorations. Lights blinked non-stop, day and night. Bright reds, greens, and blues flashed through the courtyard windows. Animatronic figures stood near the entrance, repeating the same movements over and over again. Plastic reindeer nodded their heads in stiff, unnatural motions. A mechanical Santa waved endlessly without stopping. Christmas music played outside on a loop. The same few songs over and over, soft during the day, louder at night, echoing through the open space between buildings. The tenant living there was an older man. Marcus had seen him a few times in passing, usually early in the morning or late at night. The man never spoke, never smiled, never acknowledged anyone. He walked slowly, eyes forward, as if nothing around him existed. At first, the decorations were just annoying. They made it hard to sleep. The blinking lights reflected off Marcus's windows at night. The music seeped into his apartment even with the windows closed. It felt excessive, but still harmless. Until Marcus noticed something strange. One evening, while standing in his kitchen, he looked out the window and felt his stomach tighten. The decorations were not facing outward toward the courtyard like they should have been. They were facing his apartment. Every animatronic figure, every spotlight, every strand of lights, all angled directly toward Marcus's windows. Even the speakers were pointed in his direction. It did not feel random. It felt intentional. Marcus tried to ignore it. He told himself it was just poor setup. Maybe the man liked symmetry. Maybe it only looked that way from his angle.
But the feeling did not go away. One night, sometime after midnight, Marcus woke up suddenly. At first, he thought he was dreaming. He could hear Christmas music playing softly inside his apartment. Not outside, inside. It was the same song that played from the neighbor's decorations, slow, cheerful, familiar, playing at a volume just low enough to make him question whether it was real. Marcus sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The sound was coming from the living room. He stayed still for a few seconds, listening. The music continued. He slowly got out of bed and walked toward the living room. Each step felt heavier than the last. The closer he got, the clearer the sound became. As soon as he reached the doorway, the music stopped. The sudden silence felt louder than the song. On his coffee table sat something that had not been there before. A small Christmas decoration, a snow globe. Marcus stood there, frozen, staring at it. He knew for a fact it had not been there earlier that night. After several seconds, he stepped closer. Inside the snow globe was a tiny replica of his apartment. Every detail was accurate: the couch, the lamp, the rug, the placement of the windows, even small details he had never mentioned to anyone. And standing inside the tiny window was a small figure. It was him. Same clothes, same posture, same way he leaned slightly forward when he looked outside. Marcus's hands started shaking as he picked up the snow globe. The tiny figure inside did not move. Marcus dropped the globe and stepped back. It hit the floor. It did not break. The next morning, Marcus barely waited for daylight. He went straight to the landlord's office and demanded answers. Together, they walked to the neighbor's apartment. The door was unlocked. Inside, the apartment was completely empty. No decorations, no furniture, no personal items. No signs of recent activity. The walls were bare. The floors were clean. It looked untouched. The landlord checked the paperwork. Then he told Marcus something that made his stomach sink. According to the paperwork, that apartment had been vacant for months. Marcus moved out not long after that, but even now, years later, he says some nights he still hears Christmas music playing softly inside his apartment. And sometimes, when he wakes up in December, his decorations are facing a different direction.